Hello everyone out there watching, thanks for tuning in. Trust you've had a good couple of weeks post Jamboree, getting motivated, getting out in the garage, getting your projects done. I've done exactly that, so let's have a bit of a look at where we're at with this thing right now, because the one thing that plenty of you reaching out when you're out there at Jamboree was saying was, when are you racing again? So let's cover that off now. So we're sort of sitting around waiting for engine components to come back from South Coast Rotary, and I was just sort of going like, I'll do all the extra work that I want to do when that comes back. And obviously leading up into Jamboree, Kevin's super busy. So I decided, instead of just waiting for the engine stuff to come back, it's like, I've got enough to build like 4 engines anyway, sort of lying around. So I just built a dummy engine and I put it in, and then started working on the fabrication stuff that I need to. So then that way, when the engine actually is here and I assemble it, I could start it next day essentially, instead of then starting the fabrication stuff, because this stuff does take a fair amount of time to get done. So let's have a look at all the stuff that's done. I'm pretty sure I already run over the fact that it's got a 16-volt battery in it now. So that's all good and all sorted. In terms of what I'm changing in here, it's pretty easy to see what I changed. So essentially, this is the new intake pipe. Now, previously the intake pipe, I think it was from here, and it come out and it went up this way a bit more. So essentially, what I've done, here's the big chunk I cut off it. So I think it went something like that before. So basically what I've done is, instead of it being out more over here, I've brought it over in here, which means when I'm reaching in here to do plugs and stuff, there's a little bit more room. So I've done that. What I've also done is, it's all discolored because the 2-pack paint that was on it's burnt off. So I've relocated the nitrous fogger, so that is over here now. Now previously it was all the way sort of up here, but as I'm going to be using the nitrous for some cooling, I just wanted to give it extra time to basically take up some of that heat out of the air. So other thing that I've done is, you won't be able to sort of see, but under here, can you see? Right there, and there's another one just there. They are 1/8 NPT ports, and they are for EGT probes. So main reason I've done that is just, I have an 8 EGT module thingy, and I just thought, why not? Why not just log all that stuff? So I'll be logging the temperature basically here, here, there, and then also just at where the intake port is. So I've got all that sorted now. Something else I've done is, out of necessity, I had to make a new water neck, obviously, because I'm not running huge assembly with the alternator and that anymore. And then next step was, I've made cold air feed for that. So that just comes through here, loops around and there. I don't know if I'll bother with the heat shields. Normally got the turbo beanie on it there, so that should be fine. The air's just coming through. It probably hasn't got enough time to absorb the heat from the outside. But before, what was essentially happening was the 80+ degree hot air coming off here was being sucked in straight through by the turbo. Considering intake temps are super high, you know, it can almost be 200 degrees Celsius or something like that, I thought, if I'm starting at 80, before it's being compressed and having all that heat added to it, you know, if it could start at whatever ambient is, say it's like 20, it's 60 degrees less air temperature basically that the turbo's already ingesting, which has to help. So, I mean, it's why you see all the cars, you know, big pro cars and that, with huge drain pipes force feeding the turbos. You know, they help with a little bit with the turbo efficiency in that too, but yeah, it's, you know, a bit of cold ram air never hurt anyone. So that's pretty much all I've got going on that I've completed. Work in progress is over here with the brakes. So more weight saving. I've ditched the booster, and that master is the factory one. That's I get it's 15/16 of an inch. Now I've got big 4-spot calipers all the way around it on every corner, so I need a master with a bit more volume. So I've got like what they call the Dodge, the Chrysler sort of dual piston, dual reservoir sort of thing coming. Aluminium, not a cast iron one, so it'll be nice and light. And then I just need to build an adapter block off the firewall to mount it, and then that'll be sorted. And then I still haven't got the Lexan for the windows, so the doors have been gutted, and pretty much all the other weight and that I've been taking out of the car is pretty sorted. I've sort of got a bucket here of all the stuff been putting in that, so that's a bucket of loose odds and sods and stuff, and that's obviously the door skins and the bar for the whatnot. I've got some windows in down here, obviously, but yeah, I need to get Lexan, a couple of a big Lexan sheet, I guess, and do the windows, and hopefully I can sort out that hatch as well at some point in time. And then, yeah, the only other thing I've got to do is I was going to do that crank angle sensor modification, so I've still got to do that. And while I was going over this wiring, what I noticed that some of the wiring's a bit charcoal, so I don't know, or the wiring isn't, just this sheathing is. So all of this wiring that's over here actually normally sits, surprise, surprise, over where the heat source sort of is. So it comes around here, and obviously there's a lot of heat bleeding off there, and it must have just been in proximity of that enough to melt some of the covering. All the wiring is fine, except, let's see what it says here. Well, maybe not. Boost solenoid. Yeah, I don't think you're meant to see the insides of the wires on the outside. So I'm going to have to cut that off there and just do a patch harness basically for it, because trace the wire all the way back to the firewall plug. That's just way too hard to try and sort out, deepening that and undoing all the loom stuff and that. So I'll just unpin that. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it looks like it should be causing heaps of issues. And as you probably know from older videos, I did say that I was having some boost control issues where the decrease solenoid was just staying permanently on. But that was because there was swarf stuck in the decrease solenoid. So I actually do not know how it was working perfectly, how it was working with the wiring like that. So whatever, we'll cut and shut that. The only other thing you might have seen a post on the old socials about the FT700, and that's probably the only other thing I've got to contemplate now and make a choice. Always seems the end of the videos we make have a good chat about what next steps could be and why not sort of thing. So let's have a chat about the Fueltech FT700. So if anyone missed the release, when was it? SEMA, PRI? Can't remember. It was one of those two, but Fueltech essentially announced that their new generation of ECU/dashboards was coming out summer of this year. Summer's pretty much come and gone now, and it still hasn't been released, but that is pretty standard for electronics market and aftermarket consumer parts as well sometimes, because it's, they've got to try and build up a cache of inventory before. You can't just launch with 10 products, 10 stock items of your inventory. You sell that 10, then disappoint everyone else. So they've got to build a big backlog of cache of these products that they've got to get out there. So whatever, ETA dates, what they are, they always get dragged out. So nothing to get too upset about there. In terms of my setup and why I might upgrade, I love the Fueltech. we're at a sort of crossroads when we were going to step away from the Microtech, whenever it was now, 4 years ago now, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago sort of thing, 4 years I think. We'd made a decision, I was like, yep, not going to run with the Microtech anymore, want to run something more modern, so to speak, in terms of something that had a really great data logger and actually had more user options and controllability and things like that. So fair enough, that's fine. Sat down, sort of drew it up to two ECUs we're looking at, and made a decision, went with Fueltech, and it's been great. Have not got a complaint at all whatsoever with it. However, that being said, there are certain things of, I guess, a Fueltech, where a Fueltech maybe has more in common with how the Microtech software sort of is versus other ECUs, say a Haltech or Motec or Link or whatever out there. And that is user definability control sort of thing. So with the Microtech, it's what you see is what you get, and you can't really do much about that. So if it says, you know, A plus B equals C, that's it. You cannot do anything else other than that. Fueltech is sort of similar in some respects to that, in that if I come up with some kind of harebrained scheme of how I want to do something, unless that is how the Fueltech operates, I can't do it. The more nerdy technical sort of ECUs, you can sort of build your own tables and your own customizations and your own, you know, conditions and things like this. The Fueltech's basically got 99% of things covered, so you don't need to get that technical into stuff, and it's really good in that respect because you can have pretty clear tech team Q&A sort of things and that, and people can't get into trouble. Whereas, you know, if you start allowing complete freedom to people to do whatever the hell they want, they can do whatever they want and make monumental problems and then point the finger at the ECU and go, this thing's not working right, it's all the ECU's fault, and it's not really. It's just someone who's tried to be a bit too smart, found themselves in a bit of trouble and you know, basically come about the wrong outcome. But there's some very minor things that I basically want to wait until the software comes out from the FT700 to know if I want to upgrade or not. And the biggest thing about this car is that air fuel ratio number is fine, and you can have a target air fuel ratio or whatever, but EGT tuning and spark plug reading, and those are the two I sort of that I marry together to base tune-up direction on more so than AFR. So AFR is there as a maybe a guide, but I don't use AFR as my hard and fast sort of tuning tool. I definitely use EGT significantly more. Now, in terms of how I can tune or you know, develop a tune-up program and safeties around EGT with the Fueltech, there's not really much on offer. So the Fueltech uses EGT basically as data and a single safety. So that's fine if, you know, if you had a 6-cylinder and all your EGTs were, you know, you were targeting everything right, and, you know, just say, I don't know, it was like 750 degrees and every single cylinder ran at 750, and then you put in one safety that if they go over 780 or whatever, it puts the engine into safe mode or whatever. I could do that with this. However, what a lot of people with rotary engines will know, especially when they're tuning sort of big power rotaries, is that there can be up to like a 50-degree discrepancy in EGT data front to rear, and that doesn't mean that it's right or wrong or whatever, it's just what it is. So in terms of this, I've got about 70 odd degrees colder on the front than the rear, and that means, so I can sort of, my maximum I guess on the rear rotor is, I think it's around like 760, 770, about 780 degrees probably. So I mean, if it's at 780, that's about as hot as I want to get it. So I can set my EGT safety at like say 780. So if it goes over 780, it stops the engine, it pulls into safe mode, and it saves the engine from hurting the apex seals or whatever. However, there's only one number that I can put in that safety. My front rotor, if that gets up to 780, it is game over already. So the front rotor, realistically, like sort of anything north over 700 is a bad day for it. So, and that is par for the course. A lot of guys with rotaries will say that they're either one of the rotors, you know, the numbers will sort of read a bit different. It can come to where the EGT probes are in the system and that as well and whatever, but it just sort of is what it is. I've sort of seen from talking to a lot of guys, even some guys at Jamboree, I said, oh, I've got like sort of 70 whatever degree difference in EGTs, and a lot of them all confirmed exactly the same thing, that they also have this. So this is where I guess what I'm going to wait and work out the upgrade path for me going forward is, because I really want an ECU where I can control exactly what I want to control. So I don't really care so much about closed loop air fuel ratio. What I want to do is I want to have a very specific safety data program built around individual EGTs. And then also what I'd really like to see is that I want to be able to have fuel enrichment based around EGTs as well. So instead of like a closed loop table around air fuel ratio target, I want a closed loop table around EGT. Now I know there's other ECUs that do that on the market already, but I can't do that with the Fueltech at the moment. So I want a proper 2D or 3D table sort of thing, like you do with the air fuel ratio table sort of thing, but I want it based on EGT. So I'm going to be waiting for the software to come out, because so the reason I want that is I've seen the EGT data. I can base a tune up and corrections and safeties around the EGT stuff with better control, I believe, than just the air fuel ratio stuff. So the EGT is a nice, constant, nice, pretty flat curve always. They're sort of filtered in some way because of that, because they're a bit slower to react. But I know, I can tell when it's got too hot. So if I want to be the front rotor and say, okay, if it gets to like 690 degrees, add 3% of fuel, or if it's, you know, and if it goes past it, it gets to 700, add like 6% of fuel, or if it gets to 705, I want the safe mode to kick in. So and you know, some people might say, like, you know, oh, you just got to get the tune up right, and that, you know, stuff changes from track to track. You got atmospheric conditions changes and that. So the difference in, I guess, being able to do that stuff could be the difference in hurting an engine. So the upgrade is like a 700. If I upgraded, I'd just put the 700 plus in it because it's the biggest and the best sort of thing. But the 700 plus is like, I think it's $4,000 US. So however $1 million that is at the moment in our awful exchange rate. But realistically, the FT600, the input expander and the wideband controller I've got that are almost, that's exactly what the 700 plus would be going forward. If all that stuff, I'd probably maybe be able to sell that secondhand for $2,400 US dollars sort of thing, so to speak, in US dollars, so the same. So I'm still basically, so the 700 plus is $5,000. I'd be able to sell this stuff secondhand for 2.5. I'm still $2,500 US dollars away from that. So I don't even know what that is. It's probably, what's that, like 1,500, it's probably like $4,500 at least sort of thing. So, you know, it's low fours or whatever. So it's $4,000 to invest. But the way I look at it is, if it has all these definabilities in it, it could potentially save me an engine. That's something I'm really hoping for, because I feel it's necessary. You know, just having a single EGT as your safety just seems a bit, you know, null and void. It's all right in a completely ideal world, but these engines don't live in an ideal world sometimes of that. So we'll see if that comes. I'm not looking to change. I think this is, you know, so don't hit me up in the comments with other ECU options or whatever and that. It's not really it's not what I'm talking about here. I am absolutely over the moon with how the Fueltech behaves. And more so, I guess you might not know what you're missing out on if you've never experienced it, but if you're using other data loggers out there, use the Fueltech one just once in your life. And for me, it is a real great data logger. I love the way the Fueltech is. You can choose any point in you know, the run, the whatever, and all the data for that single point, for every single sensor or anything you're logging is all there in real time on the left. So you can just scroll. You could have like, you might just have an RPM and map trace on your actual graph, but you can scroll through that and you can see all the sensor data in real time while on the other screen. So I love that, and I love being able to just, you know, find it. You can just make real changes on the map while it's tracing it and that. So I don't know if I've been using the wrong data logger option or whatever for that other ECUs, but yeah, the Fueltech for me is incredible. Love it. So yeah, wait and see. We'll wait for the software to come out, and then we'll have a bit of a investigation. But interesting news sort of on that front is, I don't know if many of the people out there, if you've been keeping tabs on what's been going on in sort of that southeastern corner of America, near Florida, Puerto Rico, all up that sort of east coast, but there are some incredibly big heavy hitter rotary and piston cars that were originally Microtech powered, and they have or a lot of them have now switched over to Fueltech as well. So, I mean, you know, it's a big, I think it's a big tick for me. You've seen Fueltech with really start dominating sort of that Honda import scene in recent times, and now I guess it was probably inevitable almost at some point that racers would eventually make a switch from, say, Microtech to something. I think it was probably always going to be maybe either, you know, there'll be a couple splitterings that are always going to run Motec, and it's sort of in its own league, Motec, but I think it was always going to be Fueltech or Haltech. Someone had to step up to the plate, whether that's through massive sponsorship deals or whatever, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, Fueltech now powering some of the absolute biggest heavy hitter guns in the import scene. So can only mean good things for this ECU. And the best part about that is for me, now hopefully we also see maybe certain things that they want to see, and they may be, you know, really big name tuners that are tuning for those cars. That stuff might filter into the software, because, you know, someone like me could say it, but I'm just a nobody here in Australia. But if a big name says it, who's hopefully going to tune maybe the first 5-second rotary in the world, says, I want that in the software, guess what? That's probably going to end up in the software. So we'll see what happens. Overall, time to get the engine back in this thing in the next couple of weeks, hopefully, and then off to the dyno. So I think that's pretty much it for the car. We haven't really done much else. I've now got to weld up the rest of that pipe, but and then I'll paint it all, make it all look schmick again, and get the brakes sorted. And if I don't have the Lexan windows done by the dyno, it doesn't really matter. I can go to the dyno without Lexan windows. And then, yeah, get out onto the track again, because it's been certainly been a long time before drinks. So long time between drinks. So yeah, overall just excited to get the engine back in the car, get to the dyno, and hopefully, fingers crossed, make some reliable misfire-free power at like 45+ pound of boost, and then put that all together at the racetrack. That'll be good. So thanks for watching. Thanks to everyone that come up and said hello at Jamboree. That was killer. Sort of first year where I haven't sort of just either hid behind the camera or hid in the stands and that since I've been sort of doing YouTube. I haven't been up to Brisbane Jamboree since well before pre-COVID, and I started this in the middle of COVID. So it was great to be up there. The Bend Motorsports Park is the next round. Jamboree's November 4th, I believe, one-day event. So yeah, get out there, support the Adelaide track. It'll be one of the first events to be out there. So go check out the event because it's Jamboree, and then just go out also check out the Bend, because that complex looks incredible. So all right, until next time, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.